The reception hall froze in a way no one had rehearsed for. Suited security moved fast and without apology, closing doors, blocking aisles, and gently but firmly lowering a guest's phone before the screen could finish focusing. Conversations died mid-sentence. The band hit a wrong note, and then nothing at all. For a split second, the bride thought the worst possible thing was finally happening, that the venue had decided the unpaid balance mattered more than love, that they were about to be escorted out in front of everyone they knew. The groom saw the white glove before he saw the face. It hovered just behind the line of guards, unmistakable even in the dim light. His chest tightened. Michael Jackson did not arrive quietly. Not anywhere. Not ever. When he appeared, crowds followed. Cameras multiplied. Control vanished. A surprise guest like this could turn their wedding into chaos in seconds, and they had no security, no plan, no protection from what might come rushing through those doors. Michael took a single step forward, and the room seemed to inhale together. Chairs creaked as people leaned back. A woman near the aisle whispered his name like a prayer or a warning. The bride's bouquet trembled in her hands. The groom reached for her fingers, unsure whether to pull her closer or let go. Nobody knew if this was generosity or disaster. Nobody knew if this moment would end in applause or panic. For a heartbeat, it felt as if the wedding no longer belonged to them. Michael paused, eyes scanning the room, the guards waiting for his signal. The silence stretched long enough to become uncomfortable, then frightening. This was the point where things usually tipped. This was where a private day became public property. And then, before anyone could move or speak or decide what to do, Michael shifted his weight toward the aisle, to understand why he was standing there at all, and why he had come unannounced to a wedding that could barely afford its own flowers. You have to go back to a quiet conversation weeks earlier, one that was never meant to travel beyond a kitchen table, but somehow did. 3 weeks earlier, the wedding existed as a problem spread across a small kitchen table. Crumpled bills were sorted into uneven piles, pushed back and forth, as if rearranging them might make new money appear. Rent sat on one side. The venue deposit sat on the other. There was no pile for both. The groom rubbed his temples and said they could delay the ceremony, just a few months, maybe longer. The bride stared at the envelope with the venue logo and shook her head. Delaying felt like admitting failure. Family help arrived the way it often does, smiling on the surface and sharp underneath. A loan that required control over the guest list. An offer that came with a lecture about responsibility and embarrassment. Each condition cut a little deeper. Pride turned into resentment. Resentment into raised voices. By the end of the night, they were arguing about more than money. They were arguing about what kind of people they wanted to be, and whether love was supposed to feel this small under pressure. The bride took extra shifts wherever she could find them. One of them was a children's charity event. Long hours, low pay, but impossible to say no to. Late in the evening, exhausted and distracted, she admitted to an organizer that she might have to cancel her own wedding. It was said softly, without drama, just a fact shared between folding tables and half-deflated balloons. She did not notice the man standing a few feet away, listening without reacting. He was quiet, well-dressed, and did not ask follow-up questions right away. When he did speak, it was only to ask for the name of the venue. His tone suggested logistics, not curiosity. She answered, assuming it was nothing. As she left, he told her he might know someone who could help, if they were open to it. She smiled politely and forgot about him before she reached her car. That night, the landline rang just after dinner. They looked at each other, confused, because nobody called that number anymore. The groom picked up and listened, his posture changing as a soft, careful voice explained that help was possible. No press, no photos, no announcements. Just one condition. If you say yes, you must keep it secret. The groom covered the receiver and looked at his fiancée, unsure whether this was a miracle or a trap. The first offer arrives wrapped in politeness and caution, which somehow makes it feel worse. An unnamed patron, no contracts, no interviews, no social posts, will quietly cover the venue costs. All they have to do is agree to absolute discretion. The groom laughs when he hangs up, the kind of laugh people use when they are scared. It sounds like a scam, or a setup, or both. They decide immediately. No, they would rather scale the wedding down than owe a stranger something they do not understand. 2 days later, the second message lands heavier. This one comes from the venue manager, a woman who has suddenly lost her warmth. She says a cashier's check is already being prepared, and that canceling now would mean losing their date, their deposit, and their reputation with every vendor in town. She speaks as if the decision is already out of their hands. The bride feels her throat tighten. The groom insists they never agreed to anything. The manager pauses, then says carefully, You might want to think about that again. They refuse, but the word feels thinner this time. The third contact does not come by phone. It comes in person. A suited man appears during the rehearsal, wearing an earpiece and a calm expression that never breaks. He does not introduce himself. He measures doorways with his eyes, asks the pastor precise questions about timing, and studies the guest list as if it were a map of potential problems. He does not threaten or explain. He simply takes notes. People begin whispering. A cousin asks why security is suddenly mentioned in the seating plan. The florist calls to confirm details they never approved. The couple tries to regain control, but the options keep shrinking. Exits disappear one by one, not locked yet, just spoken for. By the end of the evening, the bride notices a sealed envelope taped beneath the head table. Inside is a printed schedule, down to the minute, with names highlighted and instructions underlined. At the bottom, in clean block letters, are 3 words that make her hands shake. Do not deviate. She looks up to find the suited man watching from across the room, his face unreadable. For the first time, it hits her that this is no longer an offer they can refuse. Wedding day arrives with the feeling of something tightening rather than beginning. The venue staff moves differently now, brisk and nervous, eyes flicking toward corners instead of faces. Side doors are locked early, for safety, the explanation delivered without room for questions. A man introduced as the new security chief quietly tells guests that no photos are allowed until after the vows. Murmurs ripple through the room. Someone scoffs. Someone else pockets their phone, but does not look happy about it. By mid-morning, the tension has spread. A cousin corners the groom and whispers that this feels wrong, that people are being pushed around, that he knows a guy at a radio station who would love to hear about it. The groom nods without committing. The bride pulls him into the hallway, away from the noise, and they argue in low voices that crack anyway. Canceling now would mean refunds they do not have, and explanations they cannot give. Continuing means surrendering the day to forces they still do not understand. Either way, they are trapped. Then, the florist arrives. The arrangements are nothing like what they ordered. They are bigger, cleaner, impossibly perfect. Flowers the bride recognizes from magazines, not budgets. Attached to the invoice is a single word stamped in red: paid. The venue manager goes pale when she sees it. She smooths her jacket and murmurs something about the client, the phrase slipping out like a mistake. When the bride asks who that is, the manager only says they should trust that everything is being handled. Her voice shakes. Outside, the groom notices the vans. Black, unmarked, engines idling, parked too neatly to be accidental. One by one, men step out and take positions near entrances without blocking them, without speaking. Just standing. Watching. Guests notice now. The room buzzes with speculation, fear, excitement, and resentment all at once. There is no announcement, no explanation. The ceremony is simply ushered forward, as if momentum itself has become a decision. Music starts. People sit. The bride takes her place, heart racing, bouquet damp in her grip. She faces the groom and tries to focus on his eyes instead of the locked doors behind him. She draws a breath to speak her vows. The knock comes hard and sudden against the sealed doors, echoing through the hall and stopping everything mid-heartbeat. The knock echoes once more, then the doors open, not with force, but with control. Security parts, and Michael Jackson steps inside without announcement. No music swells, no phones rise. He does not look toward the guests or the aisle. He looks only at the couple. The room braces for spectacle, for disruption, for the moment the day stops being theirs. It never comes. Michael walks straight to them, removes his glove, and kneels, not for the cameras that are not allowed, not for the crowd holding its breath. He speaks quietly, close enough that only they can hear him, and asks a question no one expects. May I stay? The bride forgets the fear for half a second, long enough to nod. The groom manages a yes. Michael smiles, small and relieved, as if the answer mattered more than anyone realized. He stands and turns, lifting one hand. His security freezes. Then he motions them back, farther than feels safe, until the walls take them. The pressure in the room eases, not gone, but redirected. Michael lowers his voice, and somehow the entire hall follows. He says nothing dramatic. He does not explain himself. He simply looks at the pastor and gives a small nod. The pastor swallows, nods back, and continues where he left off, his voice steadier than before. Michael reaches for the microphone meant for the vows and places it gently into the groom's hand. He leans in and whispers words that cut through everything else. This is your stage. The groom feels his chest unlock. The bride exhales a breath she has been holding all morning. The vows come out shaky at first, then stronger. Words meant for each other finally land where they were supposed to. The guests stop watching Michael and start watching the couple. For the first time that day, the wedding is real. After the kiss, Michael does not linger. In the hallway, away from everyone, he explains without drama. He heard they were struggling. He knew what it felt like to have moments stolen by noise. He wanted them to have their day, not a headline. Nothing more. He leaves the way he came, quietly. When the couple returns to the reception, the room rises for them. They are married. They are safe. And for the rest of the night, they are the ones in control. By morning, the danger has changed shape. There are no guards, no locked doors, no black vans outside the apartment. Instead, there is noise. It starts small, the way these things always do. A guest tells a coworker they saw something unbelievable. The coworker tells a friend who knows a DJ. By noon, a local radio show is teasing a segment about a mystery superstar wedding, careful not to say the name, but generous with hints. The couple listens in silence, realizing how fast a secret can grow legs. The phone rings before they finish their coffee. This time, the voice is firm, professional, and urgent. Jackson's team explains that silence is not about privacy anymore. It is about safety. Crowds follow rumors faster than police can manage, and the last thing anyone wants is a mob outside their home or the venue. The groom promises discretion, his voice tight. The bride nods along, even though no one can see her, understanding that the gift they were given can still turn sharp if mishandled. They spend the afternoon ignoring messages and resisting the urge to defend themselves online. Each notification feels like a door rattling. Late in the day, while putting away centerpieces they brought home, the bride notices the bouquet box is heavier than it should be. Tucked beneath the tissue paper is an envelope, thick and carefully sealed, her name written in a familiar looping hand she has only seen on album covers. They lock the apartment door before opening it. It feels necessary, instinctive, as if the paper itself carries weight beyond what is inside. They sit at the same kitchen table where weeks earlier they counted crumpled bills and argued about pride. The groom slides a finger under the seal and unfolds the letter slowly, like something fragile might break if rushed. There is no check inside, no dramatic promise. Instead, there are details, names, phone numbers, a plan laid out with precision and care, help that does not announce itself, help that lasts longer than one night. At the bottom, a final line written smaller than the rest, almost shy. The bride reads it once, then again. Her hand rises to cover her mouth, not because she is crying, but because she suddenly understands that what happened at their wedding was only the beginning of something much bigger. Years later, the story survives the way all good stories do, by being told incorrectly on purpose. Someone swears Michael sang the first dance. Someone else insists he paid for everything in diamonds slipped under the table. A distant acquaintance claims he stayed all night, laughing with guests like an old friend. The couple never correct anyone. They learned early that the truth sounds smaller than the myth and somehow means more because of it. What actually happened is simpler. He arrived. He gave the day back to the people it belonged to. Then he disappeared. The letter they opened at the kitchen table explained everything without spectacle. There was no money inside, no blank check that could be waved around later. Instead, there was a plan laid out with quiet precision, a contact for a job interview that would never appear online. A medical bill for the bride's father marked paid in full, handled so cleanly that no one at the hospital could say by whom. A list of resources, names, and phone numbers that would matter months later, not headlines that would fade in a week. At the end of the letter, there was only one request. No thank yous, no promises, just an instruction written plainly. Pass it on, quietly. They never see Michael again. No follow-up call, no holiday card, no reminder that they owe anything. But the wedding becomes a reference point they return to when life tightens, proof that generosity does not need witnesses to be real. Over time, they begin to recognize moments where they can do the same for others. The world remembers Michael Jackson as a spectacle, a voice, a phenomenon that demanded attention. But to them, his greatest performance lasted only a few minutes and made no sound at all. It was the moment he stepped into their lives, handed back the spotlight, and proved that sometimes the most powerful thing a famous person can do is make themselves disappear.